Hi, and welcome to another in a series of technology tips brought to you by K2 Enterprises. My name is Tommy Stevens, and it will be my pleasure today to lead you through a quick discussion of how you can use Excel's very easy to use large and small functions to identify specific values in your Excel worksheets. Now, of course, most of us are probably already familiar with Excel's min and max functions. The min function, of course, identifies the smallest value in a range, and the max function identifies the largest value in a range. You will see momentarily that the large function and the small function do much the same as the min and the max functions. However, the large and the small functions are certainly much more flexible than the min and the max functions. Let's jump into the demonstration. Now, as you can tell, I have some transactional data presented here on the screen for you, and I want to use the large function to identify the largest value in column F, or the calculated extension column, as we're looking at it on screen. To make that happen, I will just in cell H2 enter a formula that uses the large function equals large, and then I'm going to indicate the array or the range, or in this case, the table column of data that I want to select the largest value from. And then finally, and this is where things get a little bit interesting with the large and the small function, I'm going to indicate that I want the single largest value. And to do so, I will simply enter the number 1 at the end of the formula. Now let's go ahead and complete the formula, and then I will expose that formula to you up in the formula bar, and we will very quickly talk through it right up here as I zoom in on it to make it a little bit easier to see. Of course, what we're saying here is that we want Excel to go to the transactions table, and more specifically the calculated extension column of the transactions table, and to identify the largest value. Now, when I emphasize the phrase there, the largest value, that's what the number 1 is doing for us. I could do that a little bit differently. In fact, I will do that a little bit differently right now. Let's go down to cell H3 and let's type in equals large, just as we did before. Let's again point to that calculated extension column, but this time we're going to say we want the second largest value. And that's why I have the number 2 near the end of the formula. Of course, pressing enter to complete the formula, I'm now finding the second largest value in that range. And there is the distinction between the large function and the max function, is with the large function, I can indicate whether I want the first largest value, the second largest value, the third largest value, the nth largest value, as the case might be. Now, of course, we could use relative cell referencing and make this a lot easier on ourselves. Maybe I wanted to see the first through the fifth largest values in this range. Well, let's just go in and quickly enter our formula now. Large function, again on that calc extension column, but this time notice that I'm going to make a reference to cell I2. Let's complete that formula. And now let's copy that formula down the range. And of course, those references, or the reference to cell I2, obviously adjusted to I3, I4, I5, etc. And that is how we are now able to identify the first through the fifth largest items in the range. Now, as you might expect, the small function works virtually identical to the large function. Small equals small. Let's go to the calc extension column and say that we want the first smallest value in the range. And now we indeed find the first smallest value in the range, and that is 2 cents. I could certainly go in and modify that small formula now to include the relative cell references to cells I2 through I6, but I will not take your time to do that. As you can clearly see, the small function works virtually identical to the large function. Now, these are two very simple, very easy to use functions that we've had available to us in Excel for an extended period of time. Unfortunately, they're not often used, and I think that's because they kind of hide in the shadows of the min and the max functions. They will do everything that the min and the max functions do, except they give you greater flexibility if you need to identify something other than the absolute minimum or the absolute maximum in your range. I hope this information has been useful to you. Thank you for stopping by today, and be sure to check back on our YouTube channel periodically as we continue to provide and update the content in that channel. Once again, thanks. We look forward to serving you again in the near future.